or Jacksonville State, some of the schools that I went to, some of those were at Bevel State where I graduated. It's education. I believe is kind of what you make of it. But the nice thing about us is you're not going to have the 800 seat stadium class. So the one-on-one aspect of it is pretty cool. And there are people that need that a little more. Everybody's got different places and different emphasis on academics that they come from when they come from the high school level. Some of them are pretty good, some of them are not. Some individuals get lost in the shuffle in high school academically. Some of them thrive. It's education is it's one-on-one with coaching. It's a very fluid deal, and you got to change with it. So I think the JC model has been really good for a lot of ways because the number one thing is you get access to a lot of those things that you're going to see at the 4-year level, especially in the first 2 years, but without, the auditorium classroom, so to speak, which, again, some people are okay with that. Some people aren't. You also technologically, that was a big concern I had coming to Northeast. I was just wondering, hey, coming from A&M, we have all the bells and whistles. Are they going to have that? Does the 2-year system in Alabama have that? And I've been blown away on that end. I mean, there's really nothing if you are worried about, coming to us or really any school that I've seen in the 2-year system in Alabama and thinking, oh, we're not going to have, what we need as far as tech to be proficient in a new world. I don't think those are legitimate fears, based on what I've seen. So that's a big aspect. We really appreciate all the people at Northeast and beyond that have really invested in that because I think it prepares our students. I was in the 2-year system up until 2013, and then obviously was gone for a while and came back. And I'm not saying we were bad before, but we're certainly better than we were, as a 2-year group in the state of Alabama. So that's been really, really awesome to see. And it's helped me a lot just as an instructor and as a coach for sure.
Coach, we had a little lag and we picked up on the second question a lot, but I think you actually answered the first one. Phil, I'm going to turn it over to you, but I have one more question, Coach.
Okay.
So when you're at Marion, I know a couple of different players from Marion that ended up at Alabama A&M.
Mm-hmm.
That part you said of did you have a working relationship with them back then, or is that just the players told?
That particular case was more of the players making themselves known in an individual outing that Alabama A&M happened to be following. One of the proudest things we were at Marion was, in the 5, we were there 6 years. The first year was getting the team built. The next 5, we had teams on the field. And in those subsequent 5 years, everybody that stayed on our roster got a college softball scholarship opportunity.
That is
that a little bit different landscape than today. That was 08 to 13. That we were really proud of that, and that's not just me or a lot of that had to do with what we were doing, just program wide. With the school and everything connected. I feel like we can do that at Northeast as well. It's a little bit different. It's really hard to get every single one of them. It really is. That's our goal. It's a different universe now than it was in 2013. But we definitely want kids, if that is where they want to go, we're going to prepare you to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And hopefully somebody will see you. I mean, we're not running. One of the things that was really eye-opening to some of our players in early practice is, we're not going to run this any differently than we ran it when we were at UAB or anywhere else. Because we feel like we're just going to do it to the highest standard we can. And I don't think these players are college softball players. There are really, really good teams every year that nobody ever sees that play NAIA level or play Division II level. And we've kind of gotten into this sort of corporatized thought process where, oh, well, they're in the SEC. They're the greatest thing. There's some really good coaches in the SEC. And there's some really good programs in the SEC. And then there are programs that, probably just benefit because, they got more money and resources than everybody else. So, that has changed a little bit with all the media exposure and the really, kind of disjointed parody model we have. Whereas, 20, 30 years ago, you were less apt to just go, okay, I'm going D1 or bust. You would look at some of those models from there. And, that kind of goes back to the college deal. When we were at Marion, we sent kids to Division I, like you mentioned. We sent a lot of kids to D2. We sent a lot of kids to D3. The nice thing about junior college is it connects you to all that. You kind of have your fingers at every level. So, and there are great coaches and programs at every level. So all that you're definitely going to get that. We have that mindset here of just preparing you to be the best that you can. And hopefully that's in the cards that you want to go the softball route, but it's not in everybody's cards. There's a lot of other ways, to make this a stepping stone to a better you at Northeast for sure. And a lot of other junior colleges for sure.
Bill, we're just lucky to have Coach Guthrie back this soon again, and you take over the question. That answer was the best answer I could have possibly ever heard. So.
No, I appreciate it. Thank you, guys.
Well, Coach, I want to ask you this. I want to go back. Of course, you served in the military, in the Army, and you was an officer. What leadership skills did you learn in the military that you use today coaching softball?
That's a fantastic question, and I've been asked that not as often as you would think, but it's a really good question. It makes me think about things daily. I mean, it's a daily thing. The number one thing is that you've got to lead from the front. You also have to, and for me, that means a lot of things. But mainly it means this: don't ask your players or your soldiers or whoever it is that you happen to be in charge of to do something that you wouldn't do. Always be thinking about the example that you're setting, which hopefully we're doing as good a job as we can every day. We're not perfect. But it's something that they can look up to and say, hey, that I see a good example of leadership. And that makes me think about some ways in which I should challenge myself going forward. And the other piece is you learn a lot of things in the Army. You especially learn them, I don't know if I would say fortunately. I had the experience of going to combat, which kind of reduces everything else down. Any other problem you have to not being that important.
Yeah.
It's one of those things I'm grateful that I did. I would not care to do it again ever. But in terms of having done it, there are so many. I'm obviously fortunate to survive, but with that, you get a ton of leadership lessons out of it. Pretty hard price to pay, but there are a lot of things that come out. I would say that there's no question daily. One of the things is just, really having a connection to the bottom of what's happening on the ground. In the infantry, especially, it's a hands-on brand of leadership. You're in the trenches with your guys. You're sweating and bleeding and stinking all around with them, just like everything else, and miserable with them. And you get an empathy. If you don't, I don't know how you really could function and be a human, but it's an empathy level. I'm not saying you feel sorry for them all the time, but you try, really in that particular branch of the Army, in the infantry, you really understand what it's like to, hey man, there's some things we got to ask them to do. If I can't do that or I'm not willing to do that, it's probably not a very good decision, So I'm grateful for those lessons. Like I said, it's a tough price to pay to do that, but I've kind of gotten to a point now where I'm pretty grateful because I've been extremely fortunate in many aspects of my life. But that's one of the prouder things I've ever done. It wasn't fun all the time. It was a tough mission, especially in Iraq, that we had. But I'm proud of the guys that I got to lead, and I'm proud of the guys that served with me. And I think we were better for that experience with each other for sure.
Well, of course, I can kind of understand, I haven't been in the infantry, but going through the liver transplant and the things that I did, it kind of grounds you and puts life into perspective, that, you don't sweat the small stuff, and leadership, I think, kind of comes from that. Well, Coach, I want to ask you, I know you coached baseball, or you played baseball in college. What attracted you to softball?
I started out when I got out of the military. You're looking, there's a myriad of things, especially when you come out as an officer, that you could do. You get a lot of opportunities. I thought at the time I wanted to be an FBI or a DEA special agent. That was what I thought I wanted to do. And if you've ever been familiar with those kind of things, the background check on that and the process of it takes a long time. They want to make sure they're getting like the right people. I mean, it can take 6 months, 12 months. So in the meantime, you've kind of got to fill that time. And we had, I got out in, in Seattle was where we were at Fort Lewis at the time, living in Seattle. And a friend of mine had told me, that, hey, there's this high school baseball job. And I was thinking I was going to do it for just temporary. And I did it about 2 or 3 weeks, got hooked on that, told the agencies I didn't want to do it anymore. Got into that. We ended up moving to Tampa. My first wife and I at the time. And that was my first intro into softball. I had a business on the side, a little hitting business that I had. Some of them were high school and college softball players. Some of them were, high school and pro and college baseball players. In Tampa, you kind of run across a lot of different athletes. And I remember that planted a seed in my head. If I ever got a chance to coach girls softball, I don't think I would look at that because I enjoy being around them. They work hard. They're very coachable. So that kind of planted a seed, not thinking I was going to do anything. And then the job at Marion opened up. I had originally, applied for the baseball job. I was in baseball. I scouted with the Marlins during that time. And the president at the time kind of, threw just sort of a 180 at me. And he said, I kind of had somebody in mind for the baseball gig, all things being equal, though. I really want to start softball. I hadn't found the right person. I think you'd be the right person, which kind of blew me away because I didn't ever think I'd be doing that. And that was on Friday, and I had till Monday to do it. And I originally kind of thought, well, I'll do this a while. Maybe I'll go back into baseball. But it kind of the same thought of deciding to get into coaching. I got in real quick and saw that, I really like this. I really haven't thought about baseball. I mean, obviously the two are joined, but I haven't thought about it as a career in a long, long time. So, I'm grateful for the era of softball that I've been able to be a part of because a lot has changed, a lot good, some not so good, but yeah, it's been a fun ride overall for sure.
Yeah, I kind of understand. We're doing broadcasting. I love doing girls sports because they wear their emotions on the sleeve. They're very vindictive at times, and that's fun. I enjoy that part of it because they're very emotional.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes too emotional, but they're very emotional. That's what makes it enjoyable. Well, Coach, your wife, Courtney, I think is her name. She's the pitching coach, played at Northwestern, actually played in the College World Series. How do y'all complement each other on and off the field?
Well, it's kind of a marriage on both terms. You have the personal side and then you have the business side. Mm-hmm. I thought we had the personal side obviously first, and how we met, she was the pitching coach at Northwestern. I was the hitting coach at Penn State, and there were basically two pitching coaches that I couldn't figure out very well. One was the staff over at Michigan, and then the other staff was Courtney. And I always joke, yeah. I'm like, I can't marry both of them. But I had to kind of get her out of the, that wasn't a plan or anything. But yeah, I was not happy or not sad when I didn't have to deal with her anymore because they were tough. And, I think that's probably the first way that we sort of connected was just a professional respect for what each other were doing. And then, as that sort of evolved, you're thinking, well, what, would we ever want to do this together? And I think because pitching and all things that go into physically being a female athlete are obviously two things that I'm not going to be strong at. And then the other things some of the other things I bring to the table. So our strengths and weaknesses are really complementary, similar to Jimmy and myself. And you don't want people on a staff or people you're working with, at least I don't, that are doing the same thing you do, both in, the strength, weakness, maybe in what they're good at. Okay. But they're also strong enough personalities where they're not going to just go, okay, that's a great idea, even though it's not, and not bring it up. So that's always been good for us. It's been fun. I enjoyed it. When we were at A&M, we made the decision, we were going to step away from coaching each other. We had a small child, and honestly, that was part of why I wasn't enjoying it as much. It's a lot of fun being on the field with her. It's not as fun not being on the field with her. And I've been able to experience both now and, looking forward to where that's going from here for sure.
Well, I know you've got 2 kids right now. now they're getting old enough where they can kind of understand and be part of the program. It's got to be great to have them part of the program because, the young ladies, love that, the players that play for you love that because they like that family thing. And I think that your kids kind of sort of probably bond to these young ladies very well.
Yeah, I think it's good. I for a lot of reasons. I mean, one, they can see a different side of you. The players can, kind of humanizes you a little bit more than sometimes just being a coach does. The other piece of it is we have a really good group of kids on this team this year. And most of the time we've had that too throughout our career, but this isn't, from what we've seen so far in 3 weeks, this is an exceptional group in terms of character. They're obviously they're talented college softball players, but they communicate like adults so far. They show up and do their jobs like adults so far. We still have a long way to go in terms of, perfecting this product, all of us, coaches, players, all that, but they've been really good. And that kind of gets back to the example piece with your children, and I think it's a credit to their parents. The values on this team are really good. We wanted to make that as we're building a new team be something that we valued a lot. I think so far we've seen that play out pretty well. We've had them for a very, very small amount of time. That has very little to do with us. I think it has to do with the choices they've made to this point, what they've been taught to value. I think that was a big attraction to the community portion of this job. And so far we've been, pretty pleased with that aspect, to say the least.
Well, Coach, going into this fall season, what are you hoping to accomplish? Kind of what are your goals? I know, you're kind of sort of behind a little bit. I mean, you've got to work on developing kids, building team bonds, and you still got a lot of evaluating to do. So there's a lot of catching up to do. So you're kind of sort of just, flying into this thing and you've got a whole lot, of things to accomplish where year 2, it's going to be a whole lot easier. But right now it's a scramble.
Yeah, it is. I mean, this is a monster project, that we put together. Dr. Campbell didn't just want to kind of do this. It's this project would be daunting for any size school, especially when you're doing it for the first time. And so that comes with it a specific set of challenges. But, as far as team goals, we're trying to figure out the integrity of our team. We're obviously evaluating everyone. The number one thing, though, is we're trying to build the right culture based on the right values. That was paramount with who we're recruiting. That's paramount in everything that we're trying to do. One of the things that we've seen a lot of out of our group, integrity, discipline, gratitude, and being relentless about it are basically the hallmarks of our program. The big thing for us that we've seen in spades is gratitude. My wife and I always argue which one's more important. Is it integrity? Is it gratitude? She thinks gratitude. I have a tendency to go into integrity. But, we value them all a lot. But in terms of that one, we've, as a staff, when we've been together, if it's just Courtney and me, either way, we've been really pleased going home with that one for sure. So that's our first and foremost goal is the culture, because the culture will sustain even us. As we, hopefully we're here a really long time, but if we've done it right, this is something that'll stay with it, at least in pieces, for a long, long time for sure.
Well, Coach, I know you're going into this. I mean, you're going to push these young ladies in the classroom. You're going to push them outside the classroom. You're going to push them on the field. You're going to push them in the training facilities. You're going to push them when you carry them on the road, because you got to find out who wants it and who's going to be there at the end.
Sure. I mean, it's, one of the things that I feel like we've kind of forgotten a little bit at the 4-year level is that, not everything's going to be perfect. You don't get everything you want. It's really usually quite the opposite. And one of the things that's great about baseball or softball is the amount of adversity it throws your way that prepares you for the rest of your life. I can honestly remember saying this. You mentioned the military earlier. When I'd come out of infantry school days, and I'm actually thanking Coach Wells when I was at Alabama going, this day was bad. It's not as bad as some of the days I had with him. And, that I think we've lost that a little bit. in society, what's hard isn't celebrated. And for me, when I did something hard, well, that was fun. And that's also as you get older, this is one of the things I heard Augie Greedo talk about this several years ago. When I was younger as a coach, a lot of times you would get frustrated with student athletes because sometimes they wouldn't show the amount of gratitude for something you taught them. You taught them, you taught it well. And what I learned, he talked about, some of them they're just not ready yet to have that level of gratitude for these lessons. And I wasn't either. But they will, they will. And that's the part that I've had kids that I don't think our personalities are all that great, together, at the time we were together. And then 10 years later, they'll thank me, with tears in their eyes. And I have that same relationship myself with a couple coaches, on the player side. Why? Because I wasn't prepared to fully embrace some of those lessons. And, hopefully we're the best custodians we can be. Because this is a really awesome responsibility. As coaches, you're going to impact players way more than a teacher will, way more than a lot of leadership positions will. So, we try to do that and prepare for that every day, that we're making an impact. So that's the coolest thing about, what I get to do. And honestly, I've said this many times, especially to teams. I think it's been life-saving in some ways. You come back from something like Iraq, there's a million different directions you can turn. But when you're doing this job, you have to be selfless, basically, is how I would say it. And that helps quite a bit in terms of your own personal health, because if you're not about you, things help. So that's been something I'm really grateful for, doing this for sure. And hopefully we're getting that across to our players.
Yeah, I understand what you mean. I played on the state championship team in 1984 at Valley Head, and we had a reunion. And my head football coach, Jim Kirby, today I'm so grateful to him. And I will tell him that now. When I was 17, 18 years old, we didn't get along very well.
Yeah,
but now what he
Yeah.
taught me, has really helped develop me in life. And all coaches do that. Every coach I've ever had, there's a piece of them I carry with me. So what you say, eventually they get that gratitude. Well, Coach, I know we don't have a whole lot of time, but talk about the fall season. You got an exhibition season. I know you're going to be playing Gadsden State over at Scottsboro, and I'm sure you'd love for people to come see that, because you're going to be going against a local product that Coach Ryan Clark, that's from Sylvania, is coaching them. That will be, a series to see. And I think also you're going to have one series at home. So there's a couple of opportunities for folks to get to see this team in fall camp.
Yeah, I can't say enough. Ryan's been real. He's going to do a real good job at Gadsden. He's been real fun to deal with in terms of, we had to get kind of creative. I knew, I was like, we're probably not going to, he's dealing with the same thing, getting his facility going to, going well. That'll be great at Gadsden. And, he wanted to, we're like, let's try and do something in the local community. It's going to be fairly informal. Our big goal between the two of us is, get some reps in against somebody that's not ourselves and see where we're at. And, obviously with some of the obstacles he and I are facing right now, just with where we're at building everything, we appreciate that. We appreciate, what a great partnership. People like, Jeff Campbell at Scottsboro, Jeff Brooks at Plainview. I mean, they have just helped us infinitely. There's so many more, around the area. That has been, we would not be operating the way that we are right now if it weren't for these people. And I'm really, really grateful to these guys for helping us. And, we'll have an opportunity to do that. We're going to try to open everything, get everything going as far as open on that November 15th date. That's the last date we can legally play in the fall. Playing an Arizona Storm travel team that's nationally recognized. We actually have a player on our team from that team. That's what we're shooting for. Obviously, we got some big things going on. We'll play Georgia Tech at Chocolaco. Chocolaco's been awesome for us because, Billy Thompson and those guys, what they've done. I was with Smashes Force Vipers in the Pro League in the summer of 23, and he's really opened up. We're going to be hosting the NJCAA national tournament, not this year, but the next 3 after that at Oxford. So we wanted to try and play there as much as we can. He's been great. Pat Murphy's been great. We're going to do an event with Alabama, and Jacksonville State's going to be involved. So we're biting off a pretty big chunk of the steak. In our first year, we did the same thing when I was at Marion. I just think if you're going to get better and see where your weaknesses are, you need to play the best. And that'll prepare us for our championship season that's going to start in the spring. It'll get our kids seen. It'll get them playing against the best in the country. And that's how we're going to become that. So all those things are really good as we move forward into the fall. And, we're grateful that our administration has allowed us to go, do an overnight trip in Louisiana. We're going to play Rick Freeman's group down at Southeastern Louisiana. He's an outstanding coach. I think probably one of the top 5, top 10 in the country. Not a limelight guy, but, I love playing Rick. We've been against each other at various levels, but he does a great job. Going to have us come down. We'll go down to Spring Hill. So big opportunities for our kids to see kind of what it's like on the road, what it's like against top competition. So we're pretty fired up about that for sure.
Well, that's a great way, really, to also build team building. You're going to be playing against great competition. You're going to be on the road. Some of these young ladies have probably not traveled that much, bus trips, but it's a great way to get together and build team bonding, because what you want is for these young ladies to have to count on each other, and no matter what it may be, because that's what builds relationships, and that's probably the most important part of building a softball team.
No doubt. I mean, they will remember these trips. It's kind of not just in softball, but, I've always kind of subscribed to the theory that travel sometimes is going to be your best education. And, even if we didn't have the stadium, under construction, doing things like that, most of the time in a junior college, you're going to be on the road a lot because you're going to 4 years that are going to, extend that invitation to see you play. And they want to, they're limited a lot of times on how often they can get out and see players. We're not as much. So, that relationship helps. It also shows our kids, this is kind of where you want to go. With the investments we've had in our facility, hopefully the big time isn't as, as unachievable there, because we're going to have a lot of the same things they have. And it shouldn't intimidate them as much, but it'll be a really good learning point for us. My big thing is when the game speeds up and it doesn't count against us, it's going to be hugely valuable lessons. And your mistakes, are going to get exposed. That's why you do this. And it's not to, then we're going to find out too, also how we respond to that and how we plow through, the adversity that's coming. So all that's positive. We're really looking forward to it for sure.
Well, I want to ask you one more thing. We'll let you get out of here. Next spring, when the for real starts and the games count for real, in your conference schedule, are the series built the same way as it is at the Division I level in college softball? Will your conference games be weekend series?
Yes and no. We're different. We have a really large conference schedule. As it stands right now, there's a lot of debate, a lot of ways we're trying, because we got a lot of changes in the Alabama Community College Conference. Where it stands right now is, let's say we were playing Gadsden. You would, on Thursday, we would, they'd come to us. Saturday, we come to them. So it's a Thursday, Saturday series with a game in between. I've never done that. I've never had a season where there's 32 conference games on a schedule. So that's different. But in some ways similar, because you're staying with a familiar conference opponent through 3 or 4, in this case 4 games. So that it'll be interesting. I'm excited about it. I think, obviously opponent familiarity when we get to, the ACCC tournament, the region tournament later in the year in Alabaster. Hopefully, we qualify for that. And, that's obviously a goal. And then we win it, because we want to go to Yuma, Arizona and be a national contender. And, we want to, if you're not striving for that every year and to be a national champion, then I don't think you're going to be as good as you can be. So that's the goal of what we want to do. And that gives you kind of an idea conference wise, how we have to do that for sure.
Well, Coach, we won't let you get out of here because, of course, there's 100 million things I'd like to ask you, but hopefully we can get you on maybe after the fall season's over
Sure.
with, because I'd like to hear some about the young ladies you've signed, where they're from, a little bit about them, because that way you'll be able to evaluate a little more and be able to address that better. Because, we'd like to name some names because these young ladies enjoy hearing their names, and I'm sure their families do too.
Sure.
But we'd like to talk about the team just a little bit.
No doubt. No doubt. Well, let's do this again, when we get towards the end of the fall or even a mid-season checkup there. And I'd be welcome to do either one of those for sure.
Yeah. Well, we thank you very much for coming on, Coach. It's been a pleasure, and we'll look forward to talking with you in the future.
Okay. Thank you, guys. I appreciate it greatly. Take care.
Okay. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Phil, why does this program feel so big? It does.
I think it's a lot to do with Dr. Campbell has really gone all out, and his staff around him is so supportive of athletics. And I think that's part of Dr. Campbell. It starts with Dr. Campbell. He really wanted to get the program started back. And I heard at one time he wanted to do girls softball because he felt like they could be competitive. And that would be the best sport to kind of sort of get competitive in. Of course, naturally, golf and cross country are sports that you can be competitive. But I think he's going all in. And then listening to Joe Guthrie,
wow.
And he is full of energy. I think he's going to be a good recruiter. I think he's going to be good for the program. He likes the PR part of it. So, and there's a lot of buzz. I know there's one coach that one dad that his daughter plays softball at high school. And he told me, he said, Phil, you don't realize what the buzz is about behind this program. There's a lot of talk on it. And even Coach Guthrie and I talked, he don't know if maybe the stadium might not be big enough. He's hoping it's not. So, there's a lot of buzz going on about the program, but they're doing it first rate. And I think there's going to be a lot of interest because there's going to be a lot of local young ladies playing softball at Northeast.
Yeah. And now let's not lose fact. Next Monday, we got his conference mate who's doing the thing down at Gadsden State and former Sylvania defensive coordinator, Ryan Clark. So it'll be interesting to hear from Coach Clark, who comes from a football and softball background in local and how he's doing it, because they're building a facility as we speak too. And on the 9th, Northeast and Gadsden State will meet in Scottsboro. So something to be excited for.
That's something we kind of need to hype up because it'd be a great time for everybody to come out and see those two programs play. Family's going to be there, but it'd be nice for some local folks to show up and go see these two play, because they're probably going to be natural rivals when all this gets started. So it's going to be a whole lot of fun. I know, Coach Guthrie talked about, that he has a good relationship with Coach Clark. So that's going to make it fun, because when they get on the field, though, it's going to be a little bit different. But, those two are getting programs going. And I think it's going to, because we've had around us, we've got Hansville that, they've got a team. And there's some, Chattanooga State's got a team. There's some around us, but now all of a sudden it's right here in our backyard.
Absolutely. And speaking of our backyard, I hate to jump out here. I welcome everybody to stay here on RiverCity-Media. About 2 minutes ago, we were supposed to start the Tanner Nelson show, catch up with Coach Nelson. So, Phil, I'm going to jump over to that. But,
all right. Well, we'll get off here. And, of course, we'll look forward to seeing Coach Clark on
next
Monday. And, and we want to tell, too, that you may make your way down to Pisgah Friday.
Trying my best to be there and be live. I don't know what the cell signal will be, but if I can, I hope to talk Coach Pruitt, maybe Jeff, maybe you, the brains behind the Pruitt family, the wife, of course, is the best correspondent RiverCity-Media has got. So
Yeah, of course, they were the WQSB team of the week, and that, may be able to get them on since you're on vacation this week. That's, that would be nice. Be a good plug for me for River City Media.
Absolutely, absolutely. And stay right here. Coach Tanner Nelson show coming on right after this. Phil Harris, thank you for getting Coach Guthrie again.
Yeah, we'll do it again.
Yes, and we'll have some drop-ins from Charlotte this weekend, I'm sure.
Yeah, it's coming.
Yes, it is. Good night. God bless everybody.